last segment we talked about a little bit of NIL, and we start to get into the little bit of the difference of you know the mindset of the modern day athlete. Both let's just say middle school on up, all the way to middle school, high school, college. I think if coaches did a better job of understanding the kid versus just trying to be steadfast or whatever in what you want to do, you'd be more successful. You'll build a program a lot faster. And so I think coaches and players and maybe parents don't understand the environment enough, so therefore you don't understand maybe how the kids operating in this vortex of high pressure sports, right?
It feels a little bit like Vince Howard's dad from Friday Night Lights sometimes.
Yeah, but they don't understand it, right? So it's like, so I was talking to Austin, or we've been talking, and I've been talking the last couple of days about motivation versus consistency, lazy and complacency. They're the same things, just on the opposite spectrum. So you think about motivation versus consistency, right? If here's an example. When everybody comes out at the beginning of the game and the Husker and the tunnel walk is going, 150 guys that come out of Nebraska, and say the 80 guys that are there on their travel roster, other team, are jacked up. That first quarter, you're jacked up. You are motivated more than ever before. But what separates the teams as the game goes on is who plays more consistent, right? Can you consistently do the right thing? Not when the crowd's behind you, or maybe can you do it if you're down by a touchdown or you're down by 10? Can you consistently do your job and make football plays to get you back in the game? Or can you consistently do jobs being up by 10 to put the nail in the coffin, right?
To turn 10 to 17 to 20.
17 to 20. Good night, Irene. And so that's the same thing when you're evaluating players, when you're thinking about who can fit into your program, how you build a program. Consistency is key. Now, in this day and age, everybody loves the flash in the pan, right? And I think it comes from subconsciously is when ESPN started to take off, right? And if you look at ESPN's programming, right? So it used to be a lot. You'd see a lot of games, right? And Sports Center was barely an hour, and you got to think it was an hour with all the commercial breaks. Now you will see ESPN 1, 2, 3, and whoever else, a ton of highlights over and over and over. So what influences the modern day evaluator and in person? What's flat YouTube and all that
highlights
stuff.
And it's what's the narrative about me? What are people saying about me?
Right. You go from, I mean, it started maybe, I think, if I had to just think off the cusp, basketball wise, Harold Miner, kind of he was about 6'4", 6'5", maybe I should ask Strick, lefty, but he kind of walked and acted like Jordan, played at USC, but he could jump out of the gym, right? But you're comparing him to Jordan because he could do some things that Jordan would do consistently a couple times. And then therefore, when he got to the NBA, it never really worked out. And so that was the little snowball that led into the avalanche. And then now it's controlling the narrative, controlling what people think about you, and essentially you're more worried about your brand than what you're doing on the field. But that's what separates the really good players versus the average players, or the guys that can just do something every so often. Because sports isn't that hard. I used to think like, I've had some family members, go through the recruiting process. And I'm like, oh, I know it's a little bit more expensive because you got to go play in these tournaments and all this other stuff because of club basketball being a big business. But to be honest with you, it's not really that hard to be a 4-star anymore. It's not. I mean, I hate it. It's, well, here, I'll say this. It is in Nebraska because you don't get the eyes on you. Let's just take kids and just
California, Texas, Florida, Georgia.
Just say there was one state, okay, and you wanted to be a 4-star. It's really not that hard anymore. It's really, and I'm not dumbing it down, and I'm not, throwing shade, but it's not, because these coaches and evaluators are so influenced by one thing. Just find out what they like. If Austin was a senior and I'm a freshman, and you ran a good track time, I'm gonna go run a track time. And you know what else I'm gonna do? I'm gonna post some highlights, and I'm gonna put up a one-handed catch, do something, and I'm gonna find somebody that's gonna do some or the edits or whatever, edits and all that stuff. And next thing you know, I'm gonna be on my way. Now, you do have to be able to walk and chew gum per se, and be able to play, but you do not have to be dominant in order to be a 3 or a 4-star recruit. I feel like you have to have some unique qualities to be a 5-star recruit. Big, fast, strong, potential out of this world.
Right.
But the nut and bolts of the rankings, I don't think it's really that hard. And that's not saying it's easy. I'm just saying my point is the branding, the perception that is probably more the reality now versus the reality being the reality is slowly but taking over. And so when you know that, you have to understand the kids that you're recruiting, the kids that you are trying to influence, X, Y, and Z. And I'm a firm believer in this, man. I mean, if you took a kid, just say from Nebraska, and say, he could be anybody, right? And just say he's an offensive lineman. Say let's just do an average height. Just say 6'3" to 6'5", 6'4". Let's say he's 6'4", 270 pounds. Plays here in Nebraska. Say he runs 5'2" is probably good.
Seems fine to me.
Yeah, you're right. 5'2" is great for me right now.
Throws the discus very far.
5'2", good weight room kid, excellent in the classroom, does all the lifting and all that stuff, has really good tape, right? Most likely would be a 3-star recruit, right?
Sure, yeah.
That same kid.
Look at the ones in Wisconsin.
Right.
Those are all 3s.
Right. But that same kid, and they're all end up being first-round picks, that same kid could go down to Austin, Westlake, or whatever, one of those schools, and mess around, be a 4-star recruit and be like one of the top guards in the nation. So that's why you have to understand the landscape of it. It should affect the way you recruit. It should affect the way you coach. It should affect the way that you re-recruit the guys. And it's the landscape of college basketball or football that seems to going to be here, and it's only going to get bigger, stronger, and faster in a way.
The curve has definitely shifted to where, if you think about it, it's like a bell curve. There should be more 3-stars than anyone.
Sure.
That's how it should be. But I feel like the curve has shifted to where you see more 5-stars and more 4-stars now than you ever used to. Maybe athletes are better, maybe they're not. I don't know. But I think there's something what you're saying about more people know how to play the game.
Right.
More people know who the guys are at camps to go, cozy up to, rub elbows with.
Sure.
More people know to go to camps.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
A lot of people don't know how to. It's almost like the ultimate unknown. Nobody really wants to show you, and if they do, you got to pay some fee or something like. You got to pay for knowledge. One thing I wanted to ask you, Austin, just on the top of my head, because we got a texter here on the YouTube. He's talking about Texas, Florida, California kids are ranked higher than Nebraska, say Colorado, Oklahoma, and they're the same player. Yes, that is 1,000% correct. But here's what all those 3 states do, and plus multitude in the South. They have spring football. I know Ohio just passed a law to start to have spring football. I don't know how Nebraska would do it, because spring football would be starting right about now, and I don't think it's going to get. I don't think you could do it, but you could do something, some spring league indoors or something like that. If Nebraska had the capabilities, do you think that would help Nebraska high school players on the football side get ranked higher and get seen more?
Depends on who they're playing, because if it's just a continuation of the fall season, same team, same players, it's not going to move the needle, right? If you're going out and playing other teams that are playing in the spring from other states and you start winning, that's where I think the national perception would creep up.
Yeah, you could do that. I think what the spring is for is maybe so scouts or these guys that are in these recruiting services can get an early look on you.
Right.
So say like, you need to get bigger, right? So say you see Austin in March, and then like you come back and check on him in August, September, like, man, he's had a really good offseason.
What about a guy that got hurt in the fall but's cleared for spring?
Right, yeah. And so, there would be an advantage to it, but I think the advantage of playing in those different states is minute, Now, I think a lot of the things that help you make a transition to college from high school is set forth from youth football to high school. I think if you have some uniformity? Is that a word? I don't know. We need to find it.
Yeah, that's a word.
Uniformity.
That's a good one.
It helps kids transition. If you have some sort of weight program,
again, consistency.
Yep, that's it. I mean, that's really what the best thing is. That time management, accountability. You can be a great player in high school and be that guy, and you can still be a hard worker and be held accountable, just like the guy that's, a young freshman that's looking up to you. Because ultimately, when you come to college, you're just a guy. No matter, I don't care if you're a 5-star recruit, you're just a guy. You're not going to do anything that's never been seen before. You have got to do it at the major college level or whatever college level you're playing at in order to, to prove yourself.
And so, I think every coach wants a 5-star who's just a guy, because we hear about, Georgia and Bama's recruiting rankings,
sure.
But how often do we hear about a school that finally gets a 5-star and doesn't live up to its potential?
Yeah.
Because that's where I think the complacency sets in. I've made it. They're lucky to have me.
Yeah.
And where if you have that mindset of I'm just a guy, I feel like you're more likely to live up to being a 5-star.
Yeah, I think the humbleness and being humbled, and this is what Nick Saban and those guys do. They de-star you real quick. They kind of break you. They break you down. They did it here in Nebraska. I mean, I'm looking across at Corey Schlesinger. Yeah, I could be one of the top athletes in the nation or whatever. I mean, this dude's coming to knock my head off, and he did it. Quite frankly, a lot of times I'm lining up across, Zach Wigger and those guys. I'm not winning any battles. And you're 100% right, Austin. Sometimes you can get a guy that's a 5-star recruit, and he's thinking that he's going to the league and all this other stuff. Well, here's the thing that I would tell a lot of 5-star recruits. These dudes, and especially if you're playing the Big Ten, ACC, SEC, or any college level, right, or any conference, ain't nobody scared of you, man. Ain't nobody sitting over like, man, this kid that played high school last year, I better back up 10 yards. Now, if you can run, sure, you're going to respect speed. But if you think somebody going to bow down to you and from the University of Georgia because you were from Nashville, Tennessee Tech, 5-star, if you think he's going to bow down, you don't have a chance in hell making it. You know what I'm saying?
Was there anyone that you knocked on their butt for the first time, kind of put them in their place in practice?
I wasn't. No. Well, I didn't knock anybody on, but I think I never was a big hazer. I didn't really have time for that or whatever. But
guy squares you up on the field, you gonna put him in his place, welcome to the league, rook sort of thing. I can
tell you this. This is a funny story. So when I came into the first Bills training camp, and I'll be honest, I was scared to death. Because you go from captain. I wasn't scared, but I was like, am I that good? You thinking, okay, I got drafted. If I'm good, right? You go through mini camps. All right, I think I could play, but I'm just like, I'm thinking, in Buffalo, we were rolling, right? Yeah. So the guy that was the starter named Sam Cowart, right? And I remember watching him at Florida State. So in Buffalo, so he had a really good rookie year, all rookie, got a little complacent, got a little heavy. So what they did was, I didn't know this because, you go to minicamp, you be gone for a month. I'm trying to train. I'm a 5th-round draft choice. I'm looking at it like I got to earn my spot. They had 2 veterans already as backups. I got to make it so they got to keep a 5th inside linebacker, which they never hardly do in a 3-4 or be on the practice squad. So what happened was Sam came in overweight, like extremely overweight.
Not 5 pounds, not 10 pounds.
No. So instead of suspending him, or instead of fining him, they fined him and suspended him. He couldn't practice. So he had to get under a certain weight. Well, that led that he was only practiced. They would only practice, let him practice a little bit. So they were kind of disciplining him a little bit. Well, then that elevated me to getting some 1 rep. So I went from second and third. Yeah, here you go. Let's throw this rookie in there. And so what happened was we were in the 9-on-7, and so the one thing I knew, what my uncle told me, he was like, look, you try to find the biggest and baddest dude and you try to knock his head off, right? He told me that.
The thought. Okay.
He told me that in Nebraska. Then, I tried it. And then, Corey Schlesinger, he was just, I wasn't big enough then. I was plenty big then. So they had a fullback named Sam Gash that he used to be putting people to sleep. And then they had Reuben Brown, and they had this guy named Jerry Ostrowski. And Jerry's great. He's a great dude. We're friends now. But he was the guy that he'd always, like when we were in mini camps and, all this rookies trying to go too hard. Well, they ran this play where it was a power play, and Jerry, pulled around. Well, it's 9-on-7. There ain't no passing, right? I came through that hole. First of all, I know I didn't go through the right gap. That ball was snapped I was across that line of scrimmage because I wasn't gonna get blasted. That's what I wasn't gonna do. It's my first play in training camp. Let me preface this: first play in training camp with full pass. I blew Jerry Ostrowski up to the I hit Jerry. He didn't even see me coming. You know what I'm saying?
Did he know to be looking for you?
No, he you know, I mean, I came through there like a cannon shot out of a gun. Blew him up. Of course, I got up celebrating and stuff like that. But he was looking for me for a while. But that was the only guy that I kind of tightened up. It wasn't him personally. It was anybody that was going to be there. First play, I wasn't going to get blasted. Because first of all, I knew Sam Gash was knocking people's heads off. Because to be honest with you, Sam Gash jumped in there and knocked this dude named Dan Brandenburg, flat-backed him.
Oh.
Like the play before.
Yeah.
So it was the second play, actually.
Okay.
And Dan Brandenburg was a special teams guy. He had these big old arms, right? I mean, he
probably bigger than my face.
All he did was arm curls because he was a college basketball player that went out for 2 years for football, and I always used to laugh at him because he had no butt, no legs, but he had some big old arms. But he was super fast, crazy athlete. Well, Sam knocked him over, and everybody's oohing and ahhing. So then I'm in there. I'm like, hey, you got him. You ain't getting me.
Nope.
Yeah, so that's
today.
That's probably my only, story of really trying to like tighten somebody up. Otherwise, I was there, to get better. But I mean, of course, guys push you too far, you got to handle it. But that was my introduction. And I will go to break here. But I remember the linebacker coach Ted Cottrell coming to me. He came up to me like after 2 days because after that I was a heat-seeking. I mean, I was hitting anything that moved. Right, team, you receiver. I'm clocking everybody. He came up, he's like, man, you're doing a great job running and hitting. He's like, we ain't never worried about you hitting. We just got to get you doing the right thing. Because Austin, your boy was making tackles, but I know if I had 5 tackles in a practice, I know I had 5 minuses. So they were like, hey, look, we got to get this. We got to get you past 50%, man. You know what I'm saying? So that's where my introduction. So essentially, when you're so nervous or playing scared, you're going to hit somebody. So at the end of the day, that's a funny story. We're going to go in short. I'm going to give you a little bit of my thoughts on I have a second team that I always pull for the Vikings and the other teams I play for. But a new team that I'm actually going to play for that's going to surprise you, Austin. I'm going to give you the reason why in this short segment. We'll be right back.